Hello, welcome to the Viewpoint. I am Mamadou Mbouch. The Attorney General's decision to release 4 junglers has drawn the concern or indeed the disapproval of the Gambia Center for Victims of Human Rights Violations and many other rights groups. And on social media and in the national newspapers or the airwaves, the decision has been a contentious talking point. Today, on the Viewpoint, I have as my guests Mr. Baba Haidara, the son of Dada Haidara, whom one of the junglers released has confessed to participating in his murder. And I also have here Mr. Sol Mbenga, a board member of the Gambia Center for Victims of Human Rights Violations. Welcome, gentlemen, to the Viewpoint.
Thanks for having us.
Yes. So I'll probably start with you, Mr. Haidara. It must be very, very difficult for you, given obviously the emotional, the personal connections. But here, the junglers had served 2.5 years. Apparently, they've been truthful, according to some views, they've been truthful at the TRRC. So possibly, the Attorney General was left with little choice but to release them.
Thanks for having us. What you just said, I don't agree with it. If you say that he has little choice, the thing is, people fail to understand something. Like he said himself when we met him in his office 2 weeks ago, actually revealing to us that it was true that these junglers were going to be released. He said that he started all this. It was like his TJ, his transitional justice, you know. So from the start, he knew what was going to happen because he came and these guys were arrested. That is 2.5 years ago. So he had enough time to plan how he was going to deal with them. But I guess it's something that they decided long ago because there were like a lot of options on the table, but they never even visited most of these options, and that is so wrong to us victims.
So what was the nature of the consultation? Was it before the decision was taken? Do you think it was before the decision was taken, or after he had taken the decision and merely came to inform you? What do you think it was?
That is one of the things that saddened me, because I'm not going to lie. Before, he was really open to us victims. And he even used to say, I have an open door policy with the victims. So I expected more from him. And just like you said, it was after the decision that we even called, but at the same time, he knew that we were going to call, and he really welcomed the call so that we can sit together. But what we thought when we went to him was that, yeah, he was going to be really open about the whole thing, but he was trying to sort of force us to, have his backing. And how can we, knowing that these murderers, they committed gross human rights violation, and they were going to set free in our streets?
We'll come back to that. Mr. Mbenga, so your view on the whole consultation, what was called consultation, I would imagine that you participated or you've been following it keenly, given a board member. So what is your view on this consultation he had with you?
Yes, thank you. Because I was in New York when everything happened, and I just couldn't believe, because this is not the first time that we had issue with the Minister of Justice releasing information to the media rather than coming to the victim center or the victims. And we protested several times. And he gave us assurance that from now on, his assistant, Hussein Tomasi, will coordinate with us on anything dealing with the victims and the MOJ. And it never happened. And we went out, I protested vehemently. And he didn't like that you know, because see what happened. It was the same day that the last jungler confessed, and that evening he went on TV talking about consulting the TRRC to release these junglers. And we said, no, not in our name. It's very disrespectful. At least he could have called Baba Haidara or MMCC or Aisha Jammeh or the families and get their blessing. And even if he has to go on a press conference and let them flank him, the whole world will understand. But that's the reason why from the human rights group, the CS, everybody is so angry.
Okay, but here let's play a bit of devil's advocate. He is the Attorney General and Minister of Justice,
Yeah.
So he would have to take certain official decisions.
Absolutely.
Did he really have to get your approval before deciding? Do we want our ministers to be like that?
We are not asking for him to have our blessing, but we expected consultations where even to have a better idea, because until now it's a bit vague. They're saying that it's not amnesty, they're saying that they were released, they're saying that there were conditions, but the aftermath is so vague. We don't really know what they're saying that is for future prosecutions. And all this we don't know about, and I think we are really concerned, and we should really be kept on the loop to know what was going to happen afterwards, that these guys are released, and then if there is no, like he called it, big fish to prosecute, then what are we going to do with them?
So let's just try to sort of go through the Attorney General's arguments.
Mm-hmm.
One of them was the constitutional, the limit, the constitutional time limit for how long you can hold somebody in custody.
Mm-hmm.
It had already been 2.5 years. Unless you go and charge him, you're bound to release.
Sure, just to piggyback on what Baba just said, but I mean, he knows that this 72-hour law still prevails since Jammeh left. They didn't know that they were these guys were detained illegally. If you look at Foroya or these papers, everything arrest without trial, detention without trial. But what I'm saying is the NIA 9 trial. What happened? They charged these guys. The case is on. The army folks that had the WhatsApp group, they took him to trial.
Yes,
But see, the TRRC, this one is a bit different. We have a MOU with the TRRC, the Victim Center, and the MOJ was supposed to be part of it. So on the MOU, basically we specifically ask for all of this consultation. This way we can go back to the victims. Rather than a victim calling me, Saul, what happened? I don't know. I'm not that versed into the law. You come to the center, you explain to them that section these are my limits. At least they can understand, okay, we give you our blessing. But these people are hurting.
But it didn't happen.
I can also add to that. They did consultations before starting this TRRC, and that we were informed of. They went to South Africa, they went to Sierra Leone, they went to Rwanda. But all these places, they have different type of TJs, because it's Rwanda genocide, South Africa there was apartheid, and there was a conflict, Sierra Leone. But what they did when they went there was to take the good things that we can use in our own. And example, let me give you the case of Sierra Leone. Sierra Leone, they created a legal body to deal with the very, very serious human rights abuse. And that one, they did it like a sort of selection, where they will select the individual or they will select the crime. And those crimes, the criteria was gross human rights abuse, killing, extrajudicial killing, and the list goes on. Just to point out that even these things could have been also part of our own.
So you were all consulted before the TRRC was formed?
No, let me correct you there also. We were not consulted. There was a member of the Victim Center that was part of the technical committee, But that technical committee, we never had any feedback because I'm also a board member of the Victim Center. Most of these things they are discussed in that technical committee before creating the TRRC. We were really not informed. Saul Mbenga is here; he can vouch for it.
But in the end, you like the idea of having a TRRC.
Of course.
Yes,
Sure,
we all like the idea of
absolutely.
having a TRRC. But
Absolutely.
isn't it, this is really where the issue is. Once we agree that we're going to have a truth commission, just like we've seen in most other truth commissions, the victims inevitably do complain about outcomes. Once you've got a truth commission, then we may have to swallow a bitter pill. The ideas of amnesty will have to come in, and these things will happen.
That's what I just said. In Sierra Leone's cases, you know, you cannot give amnesty to people, confess murderers that killed more than 50 to 60 people.
True, but here there are no amnesty, we are told. There's no amnesty yet. That would be done by the TRRC. This is simply a bail pending the outcome of the TRRC.
But you are saying bail, but they never said bail.
Well, release,
The word was said is release.
Yes.
So a release is not a bail. It's
Well,
a release.
it is a temporary, it is not a full freedom, but it is temporary, it is conditional on other things.
I understand. Of course, these people, they were 2 years and a half, you know, detained. But since the start, they're not going to tell me that they never did their investigation. There's a lead investigator of the TRRC. And the last time I was informed, he's really good at his job. And because that's the result you're seeing now in the TRRC, because he's really doing well. So why he didn't do well with those 3 junglers, and also the TRRC itself as a body, why they didn't think about this with the Justice Minister to create a body, a special legal body that will deal with gross human rights abuse. We can understand the others they didn't kill up to 5 or up to 10 even. But even the killing is so wrong.
You're absolutely correct. And everything that you've said, that's possibly true, that things should have been done differently. But instead, this is what we have now. How do we deal with it? I mean, his argument that really he had to create some kind of parity between all the, among all the witnesses who testified or who confessed to doing gruesome things. Alhaji Kanye, Senator Sabili, so he said he had to create parity between all of them. It wasn't fair to let those ones go and still keep these ones in custody. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, again, let me just piggyback on what he said. I think you mentioned the word amnesty. You remember when this all started, it was the TRC, Truth Reconciliation. The reparation was not on it. And the first draft, there was the word amnesty. All the human rights organizations protested. They removed the word amnesty. Now, if they're coming to let these guys go under the quote-unquote free, it's amnesty. They went to enjoy Toboski with their families. His dad is not here. Haruna Jame, Masi Jame, Taba Mare, they're not around. But what I'm saying is, it's all, there's a breakdown. And if we don't communicate effectively, it's bound to happen again the next month or so. There's some more junglers coming. But if Yaya Jame comes and cries, hold the Quran, Bismillah Rahman Rahim, say, they're going to let him go?
Would they let him go?
Oh,
Even
sure,
though he said,
it's a precedent.
the Attorney General said that what they're trying to do is to build a case so that they could in future prosecute those with the greatest responsibility. That's what they call it. Don't you think there's any merit in that argument? That you really cannot prosecute all, there are just too many. Therefore, you use some that you can use as witnesses, then to go and chase the big fish, if you like.
That's what I just said. And even, okay, just to counter that thought, in Switzerland, there is Sonko, who is being tried. And they are using what they had as evidence, as material to use it as evidence. And so far, they have a strong case against him. And the case is not yet done, but I'm afraid they will get him. He will be found guilty, and he will stay in jail. And what I'm saying here is, they cannot tell me that it's impossible to pick some of them. to select some of them that did really gross human rights abuse, like these 3 junglers they just released. And if we want to be fair to the others, why then the others are still in jail and these guys are free? And those, they didn't even do like half of what these guys did. The other thing is,
but don't you think that if they had gone straight for prosecutions, all the details that we know now, the drive-by shooting of your father, unfortunately, then we wouldn't have known the details. Because in court, one can just go and just keep quiet, then the judge will decide, he'll lock you up or whatever, but we wouldn't get the details, would we?
Ba has a legal brain. Why I said that is a lawyer thing, you know. They must know better how to deal with this kind of cases. And we all know lawyers, how they work. They use strategies and all that. A lot of things could have been there to make sure that they will confess, and at the same time they will be also prosecuted. But they never gave that chance.
Do you reckon, I mean, do you think that if they had been prosecuted, really they would have been freer in giving the information as they did? Because there would be no benefit, as it were, to be being truthful. We know how the conditions we are in today.
Yeah. Like Baba said, I know there's some human rights group like Usiwa. They had called for a hybrid TRRC, whereby, like he said, those that committed the heinous crimes would be tried on one side and the arrest on the other. And there were so many wrongs done in this country. And I think right now we really, because to be fair, when the TRRC Act came, they sent it out for everybody to make commentary. In hindsight, we should have known that there's a possibility of this. But what I'm saying now, I think the Minister of Justice, the victims, the Member of Parliament, they should revisit the Act. We can't allow these murderers to walk our streets. Just, I don't know. If Baba or someone were to meet one of these guys and punch him, is he going to be arrested?
That is why I think the council, the late council, is constantly exhorting us to calm down, not to overreact, not to be emotional about these things. But
how can you not take it emotional?
Exactly.
Even if you start saying that to a victim, it will be insulting him. To be honest, you know. And emotions, you can never control them.
Exactly.
You know. And why you did me? You took someone from me. And I have to be just sitting and, you know, not doing nothing. I'm not saying that I'm going to do something.
No.
But I don't know how I would feel if I saw one of them face to face. I wouldn't, I don't know. I don't know my emotions, what they will drive me to do, to be honest.
Again, this is what we're saying, that I think it's time that we sit again. At least if they can come and say, okay, these guys, they'll be on the house arrest, even though I don't care if it's legal or illegal. Have a policeman 24 hours to oversee them. These guys, they need serious rehabilitation. If Yaya Jammeh were still around, these guys will be killing until today.
But isn't that one of the conditions? They go counseling.
Okay, there I can jump in. Let me explain to you, because I think I was more informed about it personally. And this counseling is done by somebody from South Africa. And the thing is, how can someone from South Africa come and counsel Gambians that did mass murders? And because of the culture, you know. And, you know, before counseling a person, you really need to know his habitat. At the same time, you know, what type of culture he grew up, and also understand the atmosphere we were in for 22 years. And all these things, I don't think they did their homework.
That is true. These are all relevant. But you know, with this psychologist or psychosocial, I mean, I'm not sure how different, you know, how much one has to know about the society to come here and function well. For a long time, we've been having psychologists from other countries, after all. if you take psychology as a science, you know what I mean?
That might be true.
Maybe that's a minor detail, isn't it? And I think, and the idea that they pose a threat now, don't you think that they would have taken care of that one, that they wouldn't pose a threat anymore? For one, circumstances have radically changed and they've been named and shamed in many ways. Perhaps they wouldn't pose a threat in the community. Well, we read yesterday that some journalists went to Tujarang, where Malik Jatta is from, and they're apparently saying that they welcome him back. What do you say to that?
Yeah, I know. Again, this is the saddest thing, the saddest part of the equation, because I just can't see how they would just let these people go. I mean, if it were me, they have to quarantine them. They're like a plague, they're in Ebola. Because who say down the line they'll go out and commit the same crime? What if they die? What if they abscond? There's so many questions to be answered. I mean,
yes, we are on that kind of journey. There are just so many question marks, so many ifs and buts. But really, this is simply until the TRRC comes with a decision, or is it retribution? Are we just going for retribution? Is it retribution? I mean, one can understand that, but is it retribution?
Of course not retribution, because also we're living in a civilized society where we respect the rule of law.
Absolutely.
And of course, we know that the 2 years and a half is very wrong to keep someone, detained. But what I'm saying is everybody should take responsibility here, But instead is like a sort of sense he's making out of this release, and that's what making me so angry.
Since bylaw came out and explained most of these gory details that happened, and these people knew. And what bothers me, most of these they come up, they confess, they have a statement. Before you go in front of that hall at the TRRC, you read everything, you sign and agree. The first hour they lie. Buyers have to keep forcing them. No, you lie. Until the 11th hour, they say, oh, I'm sorry. How can I trust these people?
But these ones released, I think people like Malik Jatta or Omar Jallo, with them they were quite truthful, unlike others.
No, let me stop you there. Let me stop you there.
All right.
One of the biggest crime they did and was against the Ghanaians. What Malik Jatta said, I have it all affair. He said that he just shot one and come back to the vehicle and stayed in that vehicle, which is a lie.
Yes.
Which is a lie, because they said that him and Sanya Manjang, they were the ones shooting, but it's not even true, because others are saying that the others also, like Oya, also take part of the shooting. So only this story, we have like 3 or 4 lies from these 3 people that were released. So, and from Dr. Cisse saying that because of truth telling. Where is the truth that they are telling?
But here, whatever decisions we have, whatever views we have, must be provisional, because it will depend on other witnesses coming to testify. It's a very complex jigsaw puzzle. Sometimes one piece will come and change everything that we thought we knew.
And that's what's happening.
That's what's going on.
Yeah, so we don't know who's telling the truth actually. Only certain things that we all knew, just like Saul said. And that is like, example about my dad. We knew this way back, from Pandeli. And, everybody, not only me, but everybody knew about it.
You knew the names before?
Yeah, the names, of course. So, until now, I think there are a lot of truth that they kept, from us, even these 3 junglers. And you can see it sometimes with the inconsistency in their answers, and also maybe sometimes the line of questioning from the lead counsel. Sometimes it can be a little bit critical in my view, So there are a lot of things, influencing this truth telling. Yeah.
You have your doubts about,
of course,
in some areas. Do you share the same? Do you share the same view?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just that things are going this way, and we need to reinvent the wheel before it's too late. It's like a business, you know, that you're losing faith, the confidence, especially from the victims.
Well,
At least
okay, but
just recalibrate.
True, but what incidents would you point out to really demonstrate your point? I mean, one can understand when witnesses come and lie. There's nothing that anybody can do about that. The lead counsel will do his best to see how he can undermine that. But what can anybody? What can anybody do? I mean, they have their own legal reasons why they conduct things the way they do. They keep telling us this is not a court, it is more of a truth commission. Apparently they've got experience in all of these things. So really, there are no templates. We do not have a template. We even have a TRRC, different from everybody else. There are no templates. It's bound to be a difficult journey. Yeah. And perhaps in some areas one would make it up as you go along.
But again, where I'm coming to is the way, just the chronology, because these guys, they've been kept at the military barracks and investigated. They put all the puzzles together. You were there, you were not. Before the TRRC investigator comes in, they confess, they sign a statement, and you come right, the whole world is watching, and you lie. I mean, the consul has to keep pressure you for 4 hours. And then you come, how can I trust that person? So
you reckon they shouldn't really have been part of the TRRC process, but prosecuted separately?
Because you lied. If it were any other court, they would have hold coffee up and take you to jail. Like, that's what they should have done to these people. You lied, and you keep lying for 4 hours. Get him out of there.
I would go for that, you know, creating a body, a legal body, that will be specially for this kind of murderers. And that body, if they say that they didn't have enough evidence, of course they have a lot of evidence. And from the culprit, it's the best evidence you could have as a lawyer, correct me if I'm wrong. Because he's the one who's narrating his crime. What more do you need? And the fact that others also were part of some same crimes, then that even makes it even stronger as a case if they were to trial them, to create a special legal body that will only trial these mass murderers. And the thing they're saying about becomes a bit confusing. The minister himself saying that, is for a more important person to trial him so that we can use them as witnesses and all that. But some months ago, he told us that to do that now, and that is Jammeh, to bring him and try him in the Gambia is impossible. 22 years of dictatorship made our judiciary so weak that we won't be really able to trial Jammeh right now. So what he's saying now is these guys, they are to try Jammeh, but at the same time he's saying that we cannot do it.
But the victim center, I'll also ask you this. When they didn't arrest Sana after he confessed to such murders, and Alhaji Kanyi, did you put out a press statement saying that actually they should be arrested? They've confessed to killings, they should be prosecuted.
I guess the whole country was numb, and including us. And in hindsight, I wish we should have protested right away. I think it's better that we recalibrate and just address all of these issues and concerns. I know they're out on recess for a month. By the time they come back, we got to put all of these, put all the puzzles together.
But how do you think that we can do that? Because the ball has been set in play now. What sort of adjustments might you be thinking about to do within it? The ball is rolling.
I mean, like I say, set up a body that will really, because they have most of the information now on these mass murderers. Set up something. Go to Parliament, change the act. There's always amendment to these acts. It was written in pencil, just erase it. We agree on it and we move on.
But don't you see that it's the model of TRRC, the model of Truth Commission we have adopted. So that possibly means that some people, as you said, you suspect that perhaps in the beginning they were promised that if you tell the truth, then you might be released or you'll be given this or that. It is the model itself, if you like, if you're going to blame
you
anything
remember,
that we have.
You remember I told you about them traveling to other places where there were transitional justice, and our own is the first. We created it ourselves, so it's our own model. So just like Saul said, something that you started yourself is for you to make it good or to make it bad.
That's an interesting confession there. So they saw it as a very good model, and yes, exactly. When internationally, they were quite surprised actually that we could get people to come and confess to their models
before
just
the
like
release.
that was
before
this
release.
Interesting.
Before some time ago, and it's two countries I know for sure because the person told us said that they were coming to visit us to really study our own model. And we are not asking for a lot. We're just asking for the justice to be fair to us. And so far, it's really unfair. And it's not only in the Gambia, but the whole world is watching. This can be a make it or break it. Yes, so and they should really be conscious about that.
So this is it, the problems of justice again. It's such a, you've just mentioned it, it's such a complex idea. Obviously, you're going to have the justice for the victims, obviously. But again, some people will say, as difficult as it might be, still the perpetrator has his rights in law.
But who says that there'll be justice or there'll be reparations to the victim? Look at Sierra Leone, look at Rwanda, look at South Africa. Only a handful got justice, only a handful got reparations. So I'm an activist. I always tell these people, let's sleep with one eye open. Let's go back into history and keep an eye on what went wrong in those countries and make sure it doesn't happen here. Like you say, Gambia, when Jammeh left, was supposed to be a case study, transitional justice, rule of law, economic recovery, and all whatnot. And this one here, like, I know most of these guys, the commissioners, they're good friends. I wish them well. But what I'm saying is we have to be practical, we have to be realistic. These kind of things, let's sit down and just re-evaluate everything. If you don't do it, these victims, I'm telling you, they are so angry. They are so angry, and rightful anger.
So I wonder, what would it take to assuage this anger? Is it like nothing would do but their prosecution?
Of course, nothing but prosecutions. Because we're practicing a rule of law in this Gambia. And since the start of this new government, we're calling it the new democracy. And a rule of law is like the oxygen of democracy. If there is no rule of law, there cannot be democracy in any country in this world. So what we're doing is take out the oxygen, take out the breathing of this democracy.
So with you, with this particular incident, it means that there is no rule of law. Isn't that a bit too harsh? I mean, given that this is a special, we call it the new dispensation. I call it the special dispensation. This whole TRRC thing, it's really a special dispensation. So, and then we are going to have, aren't we, different principles and values at play here. So sometimes you may need trade-offs among these demands. That's the difficulty.
Not to use the victims as the trade-off you're talking about. If you use the victims, it will be very unfair.
TRRC can come back and say, actually, we need to prosecute this. One cannot discount that, and that's really what the argument is. It is quite possible.
Then we will be all amazed. We will be all amazed.
I used to complain right at the beginning that we cannot allow, I don't trust governments like that, the politicians, that let's make sure we are partners in this. We're not friends. Everything coming, the victims have to have a say.
Of course.
Look at the Johnny Commission. They come up with everything, with people taking millions. They recovered funds. We should fight this way. Those funds, the victims have a say. Who keeps the funds, where it goes for reparation. We cannot count on Qatar or the US or EU to give us funds. Let's make sure that we know exactly who are the overseers of that fund. This is Africa.
And what's your relationship like with the TRRC?
We have a MOU with them, but the MOU is, we have our own database, they created their own, and these were not the agreements. And that's why I say we really need to just address a whole lot of issues going on right now, because we don't want to have the victims go in there and start protesting. So I'm not part of it. And I'm telling you, some of them are saying that they will not participate.
So how do you see this? What kind of a failure? Is it the TRRC failure? Is it the Attorney General's office? Is it the government? There are maybe different levels of failure. What do you think is going on?
We cannot just blame one and leave the others. It's a whole link between different institutions. Because if we're doing something and there's an issue somewhere, and you know that it might hurt people, and you're still doing it, then really, when we point the whole system.
And another reality is that not every victim really is against the decision. I've read somewhere that somebody called Fatou Sow, the wife of Fafa Nyang, was supportive, and there might be others as well. So maybe it's not as unanimous as one might think. There are others who might think that that decision is right. This is a very complex, we are in very difficult times. These are very complex issues. What do you think?
Absolutely. I mean, families like look at people like my brother, my friend OJ, like the way he feels and the way Baba or someone else feels is totally different. That's normal. Exactly. But see, this is where we come in. And that the TRRC really, when things start going wrong, address it right up front. Don't let it go until you start having serious issues. Then to come back to fix it. Sit down and come on, we Gambians, and we address all of these concerns, and then we move on.
Mr. Hadera?
Yeah, we're not expecting everyone to be on our side. And it's normal, it's a democracy, freedom of expression. That's always what we promote in a real democracy. So of course, we welcome other views. So, but what we victim affected with this release, we know that is wrong. And since it happened, we came together. We consulting between us, and we're going to fight it. We will do whatever necessary to make sure that this decision is rescinded.
What about forgiveness? It's an extremely difficult thing. Would it be fair to ask you to forgive? Would you consider forgiveness?
Let me tell you something also. It's not only for me to forgive. It's not only for my family to forgive. It's for the whole Gambia to forgive that person, because that person did wrong, not only to my family, but to the whole Gambia.
Because earlier we said some people have said, I will forgive. This is what we were saying. Some people might say, I will forgive. In the end, it's going to be a personal decision, just as we are divided now on all sorts of things. In the end, the individual must have to decide. This is what I've decided, given the rotten circumstances we are in. And that is what we are. We are in rotten circumstances. That's easily acknowledged. But to forgive, what about that?
Not for me to forgive, anyway. That's my answer to that. And maybe others will have those views, just like I said before. But for us, not for us to forgive. Let me tell you something. We were with this sort of pain, sort of anger for almost 15 years. 15 years, a lifetime. And not only me, but a lot of others. I walk in the streets and people come and tell me, sit somewhere, and, it gave me a sort of idea even how people were really, solidar towards our cause, and that was finding justice for my dad. But it sort of also gave me a sort of idea that really people are really, following this, and it's important for this TRRC and the Attorney General to understand that. So that's why I said that it could be a turning point of this TRRC releasing this tree. Where do we go from here? How we going to, what kind of legacy, they're going to leave behind. And it continues, the questions without answers, it continues, the interrogation. So what I'm saying here is that forgiveness is easy to say, but to do it is another thing.
You are correct. So how do you see this balancing of justice with mercy? I can imagine that at the center, you might have some who might be willing to forgive and all the rest of it. So how do you see this playing out, this justice and mercy axis?
Yeah. No, I just want to go back a little bit, because during April 10, 11, there was a commission, and it asked for prosecution and compensation to the victims. Until today, zero. There's a Faraba commission is still sitting out there. I know there was some initiative to forgive and whatever. I mean, what's going to happen with this? Do the TRRC have the carte blanche to say, Solmenga confess, yes, forgive him? These will have to be the sole decision makers. The borough, TRRC or MOJ, they have to be consulted. Bring in all the families that Bombardier killed or whoever, and ask them what you say. Get together, bring consulars, bring some imams, preach them. And again, this is where the victim center came. We've been telling this government, the best way to start this forgiveness, this reparation, take care of the kids. Take care of the kids. I know so many of these young people, sharp, dynamic, they want to go to college. How can they afford $40,000? We're the ones that go out to these Swedish groups, German, French group. They give us funding to help out some of these kids. The government owns all the schools. Now, when in the US, when 9/11 happened, the first thing Judge Bush did was all kids of the firefighters rescue free scholarship up to university level. You know how much that takes out of a family? If you come and tell me forgive, I say, they offered my kid scholarship. Now she's in her third year college. Then I'll give you 20, 30, 40%. It has to start from somewhere. Yeah. The reparations don't have to be cash. We don't want that. But make it just the health and education. These families need just few things just to survive. Sometimes if you go to their homes, I just don't feel like I'm a Gambian. Serious. That we fail them as a nation. We fail them. Instead of this government. Yes. I don't care whether it's solo standing, UDP, like it's just unbelievable.
And you've mentioned the reparations. I wonder, Mr. Haidara, since reparations is part of it, it's part of the package, then what reparations can one look for? I wonder.
I'm not the person who can really answer that question. Maybe the Attorney General will be more qualified for that question, and we want justice. Actually, I prefer justice than reparation. If in the other R was taken away and we added justice, I would be in the moon. Because that's what we're looking for here. That's what we want for our families here. And it's been denied. It's been denied in our faces, and that is so wrong. So
what next? How will the victim center grapple with what's going on?
There are things that we're working on. And like I say, for us, that's why there's a parallel Journey to Justice Ghana group. We have different options that we're working on. Now, these junglers came in and confessed that we killed 2 American citizens. Everything is open. Everything's on the table. We can go out there and lobby. Let them arrest these junglers. You cannot just kill citizens like that. And this government want to let them go. But this is why I say we need to sit down again and just evaluate everything on the board. And the victims or the reps have to be part of the process. the days are gone where they make all the decisions and send it right down to us. Let's sit down as partners. And you talk to these victims. What do you think, Baba? What do you think, Solo Sanding family, Mohammed or whoever? That's the only way I see
the
it.
quality of the consultation. They keep saying that they've been consulting, as we put it these days, consulting other stakeholders, but it's the quality of the consultation you seem to be you're questioning.
Yeah,
There's no,
Just bring everyone together. To me, the victims first. That's it. I've been saying that since day one. I don't care. I take all the victims to be together. There's some people on the side saying, "Oh, we favor this or that." It's not no way. We are for all the victims. Period. So
Yes.
if you take care of all of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
So tell us a bit about the victim center. Is it that if I feel or if I know that I've been victimized somehow, my family or something, I'll just come and sign up? How does it work? You just come and join?
Yeah.
So what activities are there? What benefits are there?
At the
to
beginning,
joining
it
them?
was tough. We didn't have no qualification or wherewithal. You just come in, you sign a simple 2-page form. But then international organizations start coming in and helping. No, this dealing with law, psychological, it has a whole lot of things. Now it's totally different, whereby you come in, you register, you go for counseling, and they have different classifications on what kind of victims. And our biggest headache was getting funding.
Funding, I was
and
about to ask
helping
that.
out.
Has government helping in any way?
Zero. It was all the Germans, the French, like the OSIWA, Human Rights Watch, IRDA. There's some good Gambian lawyers out here, the Gayso, the Ajikombe Gays, the Fat Jan Senghor.
And you've asked government for help?
Oh, please.
Uh,
But they're the one that should come in. We shouldn't be asking them. They have the money. Why should they be going all over the world looking for funding? The government should put in 5%. You have invest a little bit to understand the value it's worth. The TRRC is worth. You cannot just depend on the EU or the Qatar or whoever. Then there's no value to me. There's no value to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mr. Haidara, I'll
Yeah,
give you
this-
the last word.
The center is really important. Since we started it, been helping a lot of families. And just like Saul said, you go and visit them in their homes. Some of them, they lost a husband, the breadwinner. And most of the cases is the husband. Some of them may be sons, daughters. So what we did since we started is to really be there for them. Be there for them by helping them. Even one time we started, a bit of financing, helping them create businesses. And also, until now, the center is paying for most of this treatment, medical treatment, that a lot of these victims are having. We have like almost thousands registered. And also, let me clarify something. Before the TRRC, we started having sort of reports about victims. We sort of have like almost 1,000 with different stories, and all that is in our database. And that's why also the TRRC really wanted to partner with the victims, have that MOU. But it has to be fair in a partnership. You're not going to take, and you don't give. And so far, that's what's been happening with the TRRC. And the other thing is, we are trying to make sure that victims are taken care of. And it's like sort of helping the government there. Because when this new government came in, they didn't come up with anything to help these victims. It's a group of victims and activists put together that created this victim center. But it's like non-existent when it comes, to government, our existence as a center. And that is so wrong. There should be partnering.
Absolutely, you're right. Thank you very much, gentlemen. We've come to the end of the viewpoint. Thank you very much, Mr. Baba Haidara, and thank you very much, Mr. Sol Benga. And thank you very much, viewers and listeners on Q Radio. Thank you for joining us on the viewpoint. See you until the next time.